this craziness with Warner Brothers. But let's start off right. Hey, everyone, welcome to Couch Critics. I'm your host, Josh, film critic, pop culture obsessive. And if I'm being honest, I'm the kind of guy that likes to defend a scrappy indie film with the same passion I would defend a Spielberg classic. I do this because I genuinely love movies, television. I love stories. That being said, I especially love poking holes in the corporate nonsense that exists to try to flatten all of this into just content. Um, Tonight I am flying solo. Dave may drop into the chat, but don't let the solo fool you. I want this to feel like a real conversation, not just me ranting into the void. So if you are out there, you're watching live, I want you in the chat. Tell me what you're watching, what's on your mind, what you're worried about in the entertainment world, or even what you totally disagree with me about, because I'm all about the conversation. And if you're tuning into this after the fact, please drop your thoughts in the comments. I do read them all, and I try to bring your best takes back to the next show and to expand my knowledge base. This is a space for the real talk, pun absolutely intended. And the more voices we get in here, the better it's going to be. So now you might be wondering why I decided to do this. What has got me fired up? Because I don't do a lot of the lives, but I had to do this one. Um, I'm already rolling up my sleeves. As you can see, they're rolled up before we've even gotten into any hot takes. And it's because the entertainment industry is buzzing. Maybe buzzing is too nice of a phrase, but maybe panicking about this merger between Paramount and Warner Discovery. Because this isn't just business news. This is the kind of thing that if it actually goes down, if it gets through all of the hurdles that are before it, it will actually shape what we're all able to watch. And not just that, how much you pay for it and what kind of stories even get made in the first place. So, um, put simply, if you care about movies, if you care about TV, if you if you like the creators have the freedom to tell bold, weird, challenging stories, or frankly, you just don't want to wake up one day and find you're stuck with three bland mega streamers and half your favorite shows have been memory hold for tax reasons, then you should absolutely care about this merger. This is not abstract Wall Street drama. Thank you, Big Meaning. I appreciate that you too are like it because yes, it absolutely feels like this is all in bad faith. The deal was signed. I didn't like the deal with Netflix, but it was signed. It was ready to go. And then Paramount came in with what amounts to a hostile takeover attempt. And it looks like they are winning at this point. But like I said, this is about the future of what we watch, who gets to make it, and whether or not pop culture is going to keep surprising us or just keep shrinking into a handful of safe, recycled brands. So, buckle up. There's a lot to dig into what this merger could mean, why it's already sending shivers down the spines of filmmakers and us fans alike. And hopefully, I'll come up with some ideas as what, as a community, what we can do to kind of push back. So, all right, so let's start out. Let's lay out the basics because this is one of those stories where the headlines don't really do justice to what's actually at stake. So Paramount and Warner Brothers Discovery, these are two of the last genuinely big legacy studios that haven't already been absorbed by the Disney monolith or the Amazon, because Amazon took over MGM. For a while, it felt like we were watching the slow motion extinction of old Hollywood guard, right? Sony, Universal, Paramount, Warner Brothers. Those were the majors. Now, with Paramount and Warner Brothers Discovery apparently cozying up for this merger, like the landscape is going to shift again. And look, if you're getting deja vu, you're not wrong. This isn't the first time we've watched studios play sort of musical chairs with each other. And it never really ends well for us. Because just a few years back, Disney bought Fox. Suddenly, it was decades of film history, entire studios, and all these oddball projects. They just vanished into the Disney vault. And who knows if we'll ever see them again unless they fit the Disney family friendly filter. It's not hyperbole to say that the creative ecosystem shrank overnight. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what's actually on the table here. So this isn't about or just about two logos melting into one. This is the future of some of the most iconic franchises and creative voices in pop culture. I mean, we're talking Star Trek, which, love it or hate it, has been a cornerstone of science fiction and social commentary for generations now. And Harry Potter, again, regardless of how you feel about its creators these days, it is a massive cultural touchstone. A whole universe of stories and fans. Mission Impossible, the action franchise that has been able to continually surprise us, and even Succession, which is basically redefined prestige television for the streaming era. But it goes deeper than just the blockbusters and the water cooler kind of shows. These studios all have massive catalogs, deep benches of weird, wonderful, and sometimes bizarre projects. Think about the mid budget dramas, the cult comedies, things like A Flight of the Concords, the experimental animation, the documentaries, the indie films that slip through the cracks but somehow end up meaning everything to those of us that have the privilege of finding them. When two companies this size merge, it's not just the tent poles that get shuffled around. It's literally everything. And I think that's where it starts to get personal because for a lot of us, it's not just business news. It's literally the stuff we grew up with. These studios aren't just brands, they're the caretakers of our cultural memory. I mean, how many of us have a favorite movie or show that's not an obvious blockbuster, but something you stumbled onto late at night on cable or found in a dusty VHS at a friend's house? Uh, I mean, that stuff, that is what's at risk. And when you combine these two massive back catalogs, it's inevitable that a lot of that smaller stuff, the stuff that isn't seen as IP gold, it's going to quietly disappear. Sometimes it's gone for licensing reasons, sometimes for cost savings, and sometimes it's just because the new management doesn't get why anyone would care. And I'm not going to pretend that this is just about what's on the screen right now. Corporate mergers like this, they have a way of shaping what gets greenlit for years to come. When you have fewer players, you get fewer chances taken. That means fewer original stories, more sequels, more reboots, more of the so-called sure things, which, just to be honest, are rarely as sure or as interesting as the studios want us to believe. And yes, I get it. The execs will tell us this is about synergy, efficiency, and delivering value to the customer. But if you have been paying attention at all to just the last 20 years of Hollywood, you know what that actually means. It means jobs lost. It means fewer people in the room making those creative decisions. It means more of that power is concentrated at the top, and there's less room and even no room for the unexpected, the risky, and the new. Uh, so when you hear Paramount and Warner Brothers Discovery may merge, you don't just picture some press release and a new app icon. You have to look at the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years of what we'll actually be able to watch, who gets to make it, and whether there's still room for anything that's not a brand or a reboot or a calculated cash grab. Because again, this isn't just boardroom drama. This is the future of our screens. It's the future of our stories. And honestly, I think it's our sense of what's possible in pop culture. And if I sound dramatic, good, because this really is. Okay, take a breath. So I really want to break down why this merger is, in my humble and not at all panicked opinion, is a train wreck in the making. It's not just a headline, it's a ripple effect that will hit every corner of pop culture, from the biggest blockbusters to those little small indie gems. So let's break it apart in a couple of pieces. First off, less competition and why that's poison for creativity, right? So, starting with the big one, competition. Now there's a lack of it. This industry, the film industry, television, entertainment industry, thrives, or has in the past thrived on competition. Studios always trying to outdo each other, to discover the next big thing, to take a risk just to prove they could do it when no one else would. Um, Now we have the two giants merging. That energy fizzles. You get, like I said, fewer voices in the room, fewer companies now bidding for scripts, and a dramatically smaller pool of execs deciding what will get made. And that's really not a theoretical concern, because we've watched it when Disney swallowed Fox. Whole genres of storytelling started to disappear. Fox Searchlight, which used to champion bold indies and Oscar contenders, suddenly just became another cog in the Disney machine. Interesting wasn't the goal anymore. IP was. And if it had franchise potential, if it was a recognizable brand, if it wasn't one of those, it was shuffled to the side. If you love those weird mid-budget movies, which Dave and I love that stuff, the kind of stuff that makes the Oscars interesting, or the thing that we find streaming 5 years later and wonder why we never heard about them or forgot about them. Well, I hope you like Marvel, because that's all you're going to get. And and I don't mean that as a dig at Marvel. They do what they do, and everybody has their own likes. But when every studio starts chasing this same formula, the same shared universe, the same four quadrant blockbuster, you lose the diversity of ideas that actually make movies and TV exciting. It was the competition in the 90s that gave us things like The Matrix and Pulp Fiction. More recently, things like Get Out. None of these were safe bets. These were risks that paid off, often because the studio was eager and hungry to beat the other guy to the punch. When there's less competition, less hunger, less willingness to be weird, less willing to take chances, and they're less willing to challenge us as an audience instead of just pandering to us. And let's be honest, right? Do we really want a future where the only things that are greenlit are brand extensions? Because that's what's going to happen with fewer players in the game. And then the streaming mess, because the mergers make that worse too. Because when we talk streaming, this is where it gets personal for every viewer. Paramount Plus and Max, these two services, they're not exactly thriving right now. They're both fighting for scraps in a market that is absolutely oversaturated, where even Netflix is struggling to keep their subscribers happy. So now what happens if these merge? Do we suddenly get the best of both worlds? Well, for a minute, but then we get a Franken streamer, right? A big kind of unwieldy, overpriced service that's more interested in synergy than actually serving the audience. So let's talk about pricing, right? Because every time these services merge, prices go up. Maybe not at first, but you give it a year or two, look at Disney and Hulu. They'll claim you're getting more value, but what you're really getting is fewer choices. Instead of competition forcing innovation and keeping costs down, you're left with one less option, and they absolutely know it. Second, we get content. No, we don't. When two massive libraries are combined, you would think we'd have more to watch. But what actually happens is a lot of that content just disappears. Shows and movies that don't fit the brand get dropped. Sometimes written off for tax purposes, because yes, that is a thing now. Thank you, Warner Brothers Discovery. And sometimes they just vanish because the new combined company doesn't want to pay residuals or licensing fees. Ask anyone out there who's halfway through a show on Max or Paramount Plus when it suddenly disappeared. I've been there. I've been watching shows that all of a sudden their contract was up and they're gone. Or think about the HBO Max purge when dozens of shows, including originals, were wiped from the service with no warning. That's what happens when the bean counters start to take over. Art becomes a line item, and so if it doesn't add value, it gets the axe. And then the user experience. Instead of two flawed but familiar apps, we'll probably get one monster of a platform that'll be confusing, overloaded, and still somehow missing half the stuff you actually want to watch. Meanwhile, the streaming wars, which were supposed to give us more choice, they end up circling right back now to the cable model we all wanted to escape. Bundles, higher prices, less variety. Now, the maybe the most important piece, the third piece here is the human cost. Because these mergers aren't victimless. Every time two companies combine, it's spun as efficiency, streamlining. But what it really means is layoffs. Hundreds, sometimes thousands of people lose their jobs, not just at the executive level, but the writers, the production staff, the people who actually work behind the scenes to make the movies and the shows, the entertainment that we love. And it's not just about jobs though, it's about power. When there are fewer studios, unions have less leverage. Creators have fewer places to pitch their ideas. And if you're a new writer or director, your shot at getting in the door just shrunk. And if you're already inside, your bargaining power takes a hit. Why? Well, because now there's only one boss in town and they know that. And then there are the artists, the showrunners, the behind the scenes talent. When corporate priorities shift, projects in development get shelved, promising series get canned mid production. It's the same handful of executives getting richer, more powerful, and the creative workers, the people who actually build legacy, they get squeezed out. They are forced to accept worse deals and they're told, well, we just need to wait until the market stabilizes. If you want a real world example, I mean, look at what happened when the Warner Brothers Discovery merger happened. Dozens of projects, including several that were basically finished, were canceled or written off to clean up the new company's financials. Batgirl was infamously shelved after production had wrapped, not because it was bad, but because it was more valuable as a tax write-off than as a movie. That's not business, that's cultural vandalism. So here's where I want to throw it to you. If you're watching now or you're watching later, drop it in the comments. Has any Hollywood merger ever actually made things better for fans? Seriously, I want to know if you can think of any. Have you ever seen a buyout that led to more creativity, more variety, better prices? Or on the flip side, what's your favorite show or movie that got axed after a merger or lost in the shuffle? Drop your thoughts in the chat. If you're watching live, I'll read the stories right now. If you're catching this later, leave a comment. I will respond to everyone. The folks behind, and if you're drawing a blank, let me give you one. So Disney bought Fox. We lost Blue Sky Studios. And if you don't know, Blue Sky Studios are the folks behind Ice Age and Rio and a bunch of other animated movies. Maybe not Oscar bait, but something different was brought to the table, but it was gone just like that. So that's what I'm talking about. What's your I can't believe they killed that moment. And do you think these mergers ever actually help the people like us who watch this stuff? Or is it just for the people who sell it? So, and I'll start. If I'm being totally honest, Dave and I are huge Simpsons fans. And you looking at the Simpsons when Disney got Fox, they got all of the Simpsons. So growing up, we watched it every week. and like quoting it with friends, collecting the DVDs, you know, that the whole obsessive package. See, yes, um, they absolute Batgirl, and they also did with the Wile E. Coyote movie, though that one may have been sold. But yeah, it's just it's crazy that they completed a movie and just said, just kidding. Yeah. But like I said, with The Simpsons, when it was on Fox, they were able to take risks with the show. They could actually poke fun at the network. But now, since the Disney merger, watch an episode of The Simpsons. You can feel the corporate hand tightening its grip. Suddenly, the episodes start to feel safer, a little less willing to take a risk, and it's not just The Simpsons. Shows like Bob's Burger and Family Guy, which used to wear their weirdness proudly, well, they start to feel like they're being filtered through a much more cautious, much more sanitized lens. And then obviously the disappearance of the Fox back catalog. There were these old oddball comedies and things that I love to watch. And granted, things like Get a Life, the weird, wonderful Chris Elliott TV show from the early '90s. It is now on Tubi, but that's what ends up happening. These things, they get thrown away, and then they get kind of sold off to a Tubi where, let's be honest, I pay for all of my services so I don't have those commercials and things. And then it's on Tubi now, but same thing. It's going to drop at some point. But a lot of this stuff, you want to go back and rewatch stuff that's not franchise, but was just kind of fun or weird, or the formative stuff for me growing up. They just they're just gone because they don't make that Disney cut, or they have some other licensing black hole. Uh, Dave and I recently have been talking about the 1995 movie Angus. Angus is not streaming anywhere. It's a fun, cute, very emotional kind of coming of age story from the 90s, but it has this really amazing soundtrack. So it seems that because of those things and the contracts between multiple studios, it just disappears. It's really hard to find. You can buy it technically streaming, but we all know that purchasing something on streaming is just a long-term rental, because if the contract changes, you don't really own anything. Um, but yeah, that's it's. So tell me if can you honestly think of a time ever that the merger has been good for us as consumers of content? So this next segment here, this next little part, I want to talk about kind of the culture war angle of this, the kind of messy, real world sort of side, the part that's oh yeah, all of those '90s horror miniseries. I do know that Disney has started, like Rose Red came out, but what happened to The Shining, The Stand? But we get Storm of the Century. Yeah, absolutely. We're missing out on a lot of those. All of the stuff that Mick Garris was involved in, right? That stuff's just it's just out there somewhere, but who knows? Um, so the part of this that's about more than just dollars and cents is the culture and representation. This is where the consequences of these big mergers I think hit the hardest and the most invisibly, because every time a merger like this happens, the first thing to get cut, it's not the big splashy franchise. Disney was never going to cancel Star Wars. Warner Brothers is not going to cut Batman. Those properties are too valuable. They're considered too safe. But what does get lost are those stories on the margins, the ones that expand what pop culture can be rather than repeating what it's already done. Studios always use this similar kind of language. They say streamlining the brand, or focusing on broad appeal, or synergy. But what they're really saying is we just want to play it safe. And playing it safe almost always means taking fewer risks on new voices, unconventional stories, and especially on projects that are led by marginalized creators. It again, we see it over and over. The moment a company gets too big, the market pressure to not rock the boat becomes overwhelming. Again, real world examples, right? Back when Warner Brothers was still fresh off its merger with Discovery, it slashed entire sections of the HBO Max library. Animated shows, shows by and about people of color, LGBTQ plus stores, even international series, those were the first to go. Infinity Train, a show that had a devoted fan base and a really unique and ambitious story structure, vanished overnight. No warning, no explanation. It was just gone. And it's happened to so many other stories. But and these aren't they're stories that they say don't fit the brand vision, but these are stories that meant a lot to the people who made them, the communities who saw themselves reflected in them and maybe for the first time. And again, it's not just animation either. There was a show called Gentrified on Netflix, and then the other reboot, One Day at a Time. Both were really groundbreaking for how they um, centered Latinx families and experiences, and both were canceled before their creative time was up. And in both cases, you really had something rare. These were shows that weren't afraid to be specific about culture, the language, and identity. And yet, when the big companies look at the numbers, especially when corporate reshuffling is in the air, these shows are too often the first on that chopping block. Now, the studios will always tell us it's just business, it didn't perform. But what does perform even mean in a landscape where algorithms are king and goalposts move every quarter? If you're not already a blockbuster and if your audience isn't immediately massive, you're at risk. And if you're telling a story that's unfamiliar, it challenges the status quo, you're doubly at risk. Think about Euphoria on HBO. Will that show get to have its final season, or will this merger end that as well? Now, I want to be clear, this isn't just about nostalgia for lost shows. It is about who gets to see themselves on screen and who gets told, sorry, you're just too niche for the new, improved, streamlined brand. When fewer companies control what gets made, the range of stories shrinks. Suddenly, instead of seeing a messy, diverse reflection of the world, we get same faces, same backgrounds, same relatable stories, same stupid laugh track. These are the stories that don't make anyone in the boardroom feel uncomfortable. And then what about controversy? These corporations are allergic to anything that might stir the pot. And the more power they have, the more they retreat into the safest, blandest, vanilla territory possible. If you want a show that challenges the status quo, good luck. You want a movie that explores a perspective we don't usually see in mainstream America? Maybe, but only if it can be easily marketed and doesn't make anyone nervous. Anything remotely controversial gets quietly shelved or sent off to the development hell. Now, and this isn't just theory. Again, we've seen it play out in real time. The Disney Fox merger, the studio basically stopped making mid budget films for adults, the kind that win Oscars and actually have something to say. And it's because they're harder for them to market, they can't sell toys, and are more likely to push boundaries. Instead, we get endless franchises, endless reboots, endless safe bets. And the thing is, this has an effect all the way down. So now, if you're a young, up and coming kind of filmmaker that is from a marginalized background, your battle was already pretty uphill. Now that the industry is consolidated, it's no longer a hill, it's now a mountain. Fewer buyers, fewer chances, more gatekeepers, more hoops to jump through, just even get your story in front of somebody. And if your story doesn't fit this sanitized mold, well, good luck. Yeah, Dave's absolutely right. Niche is the opposing force to mainstream. Niche was developing a customized viewer format, right? Everybody got to find their own thing. Instead, we're going to get Game of Thrones, Avatar, Harry Potter, and dare I say, probably a whole shit ton of James Bond because Amazon owns that one now. Um, yeah, so we're gonna lose the ability to see others reflected on screen, to see difficult stories told on screen. We're gonna have less Ghost World and more Ghost Rider, and it's not fair for viewers. It's not fair for those of us that love and consume content. And honestly, it's not just about the important stuff either. Sometimes it's just those fun, like Dave and I talk about Arrested Development all the time. Arrested Development wouldn't even get a first season with the new model that we're going to be entering into with a Paramount with this merger. Those are the first stories that go away because they don't fit into a neat little box. They're quirky. They don't always make sense in a boardroom sense, but they're hilarious and they become pop culture references, but those go away. I would like to know if anybody out there has that weird kind of um, niche offbeat show or movie that you love that just kind of has disappeared. There's a ton of them out there. There one going way back to my childhood was a Disney movie called Watcher in the Woods with Betty Davis. I love that movie, but you can buy it on DVD usually still on Amazon, but it is not available streaming. Don't know, Disney just it doesn't fit what they want their image to be anymore. So we lose that kind of content. All right, so shift gears for a minute and talk about streaming. The promise versus the reality, and again, how, in my opinion, the Paramount Warner merger is going to make it even worse. Again, roll back a clock, few years, and remember what streaming was supposed to be. It was that whole cord cutting. It was a simple idea: more choice, more freedom, less corporate nonsense. You could watch what you wanted, when you wanted, without the old cable company dictating your schedule or nickel and diming you for every channel you barely used. And for a minute, it felt like a revolution. Suddenly, all of those old sitcoms, cult classics, the international gems, they were right at your fingertips. You didn't have late fees, no commercials every 7 minutes, no more, sorry, that's not included in your package. You could literally watch just about anything you wanted. Fast forward to now, and what do we have? Right back to cable pricing, maybe worse. Instead of one big bill, you're juggling, what, 10 different services for some of us, each with its own subscription, its own password, its own clunky app. And it's not just about the money, it's about the confusion. You want to watch a show you loved last year? Well, first remember what service it's on, if it's even still there, or if they sold it to somebody else and now it's streaming on a different service, because surprise, licensing deals change, content gets rotated out, and suddenly that comfort watch you were saving for a rainy day like today is gone. And then what about ads? Because it used to be the pitch was streaming was ad free. And with ad free, you sorry, Dave just popped in. Yes, we're going to end up with two or three streaming services, and they'll be ungodly expensive, and most families will either have to choose one and that's what they get, or they won't even be able to afford one, and then we're right back to where we started with cable and why the cable model was failing. And again, back to the ads. The pitch for streaming was always ad-free streaming, ad-free streaming. Now, more and more services are shoving ads back in, even on certain paid tiers. There are paid tiers that have ads now. It's like we're running circles, except every lap costs a little more and gives you just a little bit less. And then when these two merge, they're going to tell you that it'll be great, one less subscription to manage, but a merger like this isn't going to fix anything. I've said it over and over again. Less variety, more bundling, and it means content disappears. Again, every year, even what we have now, dozens of shows and movies that were Netflix originals or HBO Max, Paramount Plus originals just disappeared. We like them. There was a show that, oh, Dave's going to have to help me in the chat if he's still there. There was a show that he kind of a comic book, dark comic book story. Oh, it was on Amazon and it doesn't hit the numbers. Now it just disappears. It was based on a British show. It was great. It was dark. It was funny. It had all the stuff that we like in a show. And poof, because it doesn't fit the spreadsheet, it didn't drive revenue, it didn't push more people to subscribe to the service. Streaming was supposed to be this great equalizer, the place where our niche little weird cult shows could find a home. And that's what it was. That's why we loved it. I discovered shows, I discovered movies, I discovered a whole world of entertainment. Utopia, thank you, Dave. But Brink is another one. The Brink, that's a. I didn't come to Brink until much later. Utopia, literally, Utopia came out. The whole season dropped. I watched the whole thing on Dave's recommendation. 2 days later, I'm looking at the entertainment stuff online, and Amazon had canceled it already. Like within days of it being premiering. The magic in streaming should be that all of that stuff is there at any time for anyone. And not just these shows. The Brink is this fantastic show that Dave just happened to have purchased it, I think, on YouTube. And that's the only reason I was able to see it. It's not streaming anywhere. And streaming should be the place where we can find documentaries, foreign films, indie horror, weird shows that should have lasted longer, all of it. That's what streaming could be, should be. But with every merger like this, every round of this corporate cost cutting, the magic just gets dimmer and dimmer until we lose everything. And like, so you now know why I care, right? We obviously, I've been saying it over and over again, but the heart is why we all should care, why anybody who isn't a full-on movie nerd, TV obsessive, pop culture, whatever, should actually be worried about this merger. Because on the surface, this stuff can really sound inside baseball for entertainment journalists and those of us who spend way too much time talking about entertainment. But the truth is, these mergers have a ripple effect that touches everyone, whether you're just a casual viewer, a parent looking for something new for your kids, or you're just someone who wants their Friday night options to be just a little more interesting than which freaking reality show do I hate the least. Dave, you are absolutely right. It is available if you pirate. And that's where we're going to get back to. I had gotten to a point where I wasn't looking for those alternative routes to find things. Yeah, and Johnny, you're absolutely right. There are so many series that I start to watch and then they just freaking disappear. And like I said, I don't want this to be all inside baseball. I want this to be like, if you're looking for something new, these mergers, they don't just change what gets made, they fundamentally change who gets to make it and which projects actually survive. It's a narrowing of the pipeline at every single stage, from the first pitch in a writer's room to what ends up on your screen. It's not just about what's already there disappearing, it's about what doesn't get to be made anymore. this is how we end up in this endless loop of reboots and safe bets and sequels. And look, I love a good reboot. I love a good sequel. I'm excited for Scary Movie 6. I love that the Wayans are back involved. I love that Regina Hall is back in it. I love the trailer that dropped today. It looks hilarious. I'm excited for it. But I don't want that to be the only thing that we get green lit. I don't, and I can't stand most reality TV. And I hate that the algorithm tells me what I'll like or what I should watch. It's when I follow the algorithm, if I sit down and watch something that was recommended to me, I just talked about it with Dave this weekend. This movie from 1984 called Night Patrol. It's supposed to be a parody along the lines of a police academy. And now, if you like this movie, please tell me what I missed because to me, it is in the top three worst movies I've ever seen in my life. If somebody liked it, please tell me why. But that's what the algorithm pushed me to. It pushed me to stuff that is just awful, and that's what we'll get more of with this. Yeah, physical media and pirates. Yeah, I love my physical media. I every time there's a deal on Criterion, I'm buying a handful of I buy the Criterion all the time because I do value this industry. Um, like the only thing that you would pirate that you should pirate, because I won't tell you not to pirate, but what you should pirate are the things that do not have a physical release. If it does not have a physical release, there's no way to watch it. Yeah, find a way to pirate that shit. Do it. That being said, this is going to limit whose story gets told, who's what we see on the screen. Things like right now in the horror world, there's the Art the Clown, the Terrifier movies. Those will even get harder to make and get screen time because they're not going to get a chance in the cinemas because Paramount Paramount swears that if they get this, they're going to release 30 movies next year in the theater with a guaranteed 45-day theatrical run. How are they going to be able to do that? Well, they do that by cutting out all of those small films, the small movies that only had a week or two in the theater to begin with. And honestly, I don't know how, with all of the cost cutting they're going to do, that they'll actually be able to do that. But that's why this is so important. That's why it should be important to everyone, because it's going to take away all of that. It's going to take away all of it. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's ridiculous. There are a lot of books that I love. I love searching for books. If you want to find the book that Who Framed Roger Rabbit is based on, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a huge thing. It 1989, 88, 89, it blew up. It was huge, but still the book that it's based on, it's Who Censored Roger Rabbit is the name of the book. It's not printed anymore. So you have to get lucky and find somebody who has an old paperback copy that's not tore up. Just like, yeah, downloading a Predator novel, because who wants to pay $150? Like, I have a book because I'm a big fan of Hunter S. Thompson. I have a first edition of The Great Shark Hunt that I paid a lot of money for, but that's because I was a collector, not because I just wanted to read an old Predator novel. I mean, it's hard. But like, just as I begin to wrap all this up, I who am I? Why do I care? Since I'm holding down the fort solo, let me just reintroduce who I am, especially if anybody's watching this down later that hasn't been here before, or maybe stumbled onto the Couch Critics algorithm mysteriously, occasionally generous whims. Anyway, I thrift absolutely. I am a huge fan of thrifting. I find so many just oddball things that somebody else gifted to me, is what I like to think of it as. But I'm Josh. I am a novice film critic. I'm just a lifelong media junkie. I've been chasing stories since the days when you had to physically rewind VHS tapes before returning it to Blockbuster or risk the wrath of some cranky clerk that I thought was 30 but was really only 18. My love affair with movies and television goes all the way back. I was the kid who would check out a handful of these. I would check out like 5 VHS tapes at a time, however many I could fit into my bag, and ride my bike home. I read the old issues of Entertainment Weekly cover to cover. I haven't missed an Oscars presentation. Dave and I can talk Seinfeld and Arrested Development nonstop. But the thing is, as much as I love the trivia, the debates, the best, the worst, what really matters to me personally is why these stories stick with us. And that's what you're going to be losing. We're going to lose the things that stick with us. I don't need another Marvel. I don't need Iron Man 17. I don't need Batman 43. Keep making them because there's a place for them. But I want the other stuff. I want the weird, the quirky. I want Red Violin and Ghost World. I want The Wraith and Angus. I want these small stories. I want these so-called guilty pleasures that I'm never guilty to like. And most of all, I love the community of people that Dave and I get to talk with. In the chat today, Big Meanie and Johnny, at Big Meanie and at Johnny Ward Horror on YouTube. These are the people that we get to engage with because of entertainment. And you're going to shrink that with this merger. So, like, be open, be vocal, be on your feeds, Instagram threads, wherever. Just keep putting it out there that this is a bad idea, because the government, the SEC, they have the ability to prevent this from going through. All right. So now my favorite part of the whole conversation is when I throw it out to everybody. I know in the world we live in, Dave and I don't get a lot of feedback from people about things, but please let us know. Drop a quick line that you listened, that, hey, thanks for the video. Not just to us, not just to Dave and I and Couch Critics, but to anywhere you go and you're getting oh dear God, sorry, Johnny, I missed your comment about Tom Green. Dave and I were talking about Tom Green not too long ago. That guy, he really is, he's a performance artist. And I think that is so much more fun when you look at him that way. Don't try to look at Tom Green as a stand-up comedian, because that's not his thing. He's doing performance art and he's so funny. But yeah, so just tell people how they're doing. When you go online and you watch someone's content and you liked it, give it a thumbs up, give it the like, and drop a comment. Let people know that you're out there, because so much of us, like Dave and I, we don't make money doing this. We just get the joy of talking about stuff that puts smiles on our faces. So this merger is just going to give us less things to put smiles on our faces. So at least I got TCM for now, because any movie I haven't seen is a new movie. So keep living it that way. But to those of you that dropped into the chat, thank you so much for dropping in and just hanging out. If you are catching this later on replay, thank you. Thank you. If you're listening while doing the dishes, I appreciate it. I love that you guys actually care about this stuff that Dave and I were talking about regardless. And if you care at all about pop culture and entertainment, use your platform, even if it is just to your family, to tell people to speak against mergers like this, especially when it's the two of the three biggest names in the business merging together. And remember, don't make money yet. This is not a living yet. But even so, that we do this because we were going to talk about this anyways. So I want you guys to join the conversation. So until next time, follow us. We're obviously, if you're watching it on here on YouTube, we're at Couch Critics RRT. We're also on Instagram. We're on Threads. We're on TikTok. We are dropping all kinds of content every single day. Things like Three Clues, One Movie, Today in Film History, Underseen and Overlooked. What else do I do, Dave? I'm forgetting. I do my rest of the story, the old Paul Harvey style, where I highlight an actor or an actress or a creator from film. We also drop clips from stand-up comedians and our favorite kind of TV shows and things. They're out there. Go check them out. Follow us again at Couch Critics RRT. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care. And Dave and I will see you again